What's up everyone, this is Trying to Kill Toys back with another review, and today I'm taking a look at the new G.I. Joe Classified Series 2-pack Cobra Valkyries, or the female Cobra Troopers. And for the most part, these figures are pretty cool. I actually really like how they turned out and some of the accessories and gear that they come with. There's a few things that I don't like and a few things that I have a problem with, and of course I'm going to share my honest thoughts on those things throughout the review. I got nothing else to say for the intro, so I'll just get right into it. The first thing I want to mention is the box that the figures come in. Normally I don't like the boxes, I just throw them away, but this box looks pretty nice, especially the art that they used on it. So on the front they have a picture of the two figures there and the accessories that come with it, but I really like this art that they have down here. I wish they would have had this bigger. It also shows up on the side there, and I think that looks really cool. On the back it just shows you everything that comes in the box. So the box is not that great, but I really like this picture that they used. They also have an insert with that same picture right there. It's got holes in it because they had the figures tied down, so that's cool that they threw that in there. So with that out of the way, now we can take a look at the actual figures, and I'm going to take a closer look at one of them. They're both the same, so taking a look at one of them is all we need. So first, looking at the details, there's a couple different heads that the figures come with, and this is one of them. This helmeted head also has another cover for the helmet. Kind of reminds me of Darth Vader, or I guess it reminds me more of Commander Cobra, which makes more sense. And then I really like the detail on the mask here and the red on the visor, and then the sort of gas mask there. There's a lot of different textures throughout the figure. You got this texture up here, and of course you got the Cobra symbol. You got some of that texture again on the shoulder. There's also an armband here with some sort of capsules or pens or something. You also have this harness up on top with the knife holster. I really like how that looks. That's really cool. And some more of that texturing on the inside of the bicep there. And then you got the glossy black on some of the pieces of armor here, like on the forearm, the elbow, the back of the hand, the knee, and also the shin armor as well. And more texturing on the sides here. Now this belt, this is kind of the first negative thing I have to say about this figure, is this belt. First of all, it's kind of loose and it likes to float above the waist, so I don't really like how they engineered that. Another thing I don't like about it is it doesn't really make sense to have the gun holstered way over here. So that's meant to be taken out with the right hand, but it's not very intuitive to reach across and, you know, grab the gun from that far away. So I don't know why they engineered it like that. Technically you can fix it by just rotating the belt, but then you run into another problem. Now you have two guns holstered the same exact way, really close to each other, so that doesn't make sense, and that looks kind of ridiculous. What does make sense is now you have the extra magazines up in the front. Normally they're in the back, which doesn't really make sense. It makes more sense for them to be on the front. So that kind of bothers me. Let me know what you guys think about that, if that bothers you or not. And it just doesn't look right having a gun holstered over here than having a gun holstered the reverse way over here. I think it's kind of a mistake on Hasbro's part there. But then you got more of that texturing all throughout the pants. You got the wrinkles, you got the pockets on the back of the pants there, and there's some more of that texturing on the thighs right there, and then you got the holster right here. I don't know if we've seen this before. I think these are all new parts though. Definitely the body feels new and different than some of the other figures that we've seen in the past, so that's really cool. And you got the leather texturing also on the boots, and again it's the same for the other figure. The only difference is that there's some tan or khaki accents. For example, the belts that wrap the shin guard to the boot, those are khaki, and then of course you got the gear, which is also khaki. I think those are the only differences with the figure. So before getting to the accessories, quickly I want to go over the articulation, because this is a new body, or at least I believe so. Now there's a couple disappointing things when it comes to the articulation. I would have expected this to have better articulation because it is new, and when there's new parts they have the opportunity to design and sculpt parts that are better, or at least that's kind of what you expect with a new figure. So let's go ahead and see the kind of range we can get. So the head is on a dumbbell joint, and again they're not doing it right. It's the same problem that we're having with the Marvel Legends figures. They should know how to design a dumbbell joint, but they don't, and really they're hurting themselves more than helping themselves, and they're hurting the consumer at the end of the day. Sometimes it seems like they don't really care about the consumer, but it's not that hard to engineer this to be better. So they're really limiting themselves and the buyers as well when it comes to articulation. So you're not going to get a whole lot of down and not a whole lot of up. Minimal amount of tilt. Usually you get a lot of tilt with the dumbbell joints, but because they don't engineer it properly, they're limiting the articulation there. So that's kind of disappointing. Of course, you get the 360 rotation, so that's kind of a letdown. Also, this neck is a separate piece, but you don't get a whole lot of range out of that either. It's really hindered in there, so altogether it's just not as good as it could be, and it's kind of disappointing that they're going in this direction. Hopefully they correct that in the future. Moving to the shoulders, there's butterfly joints here, and these actually work very well, better than we've seen in the past, I think. And the shoulder joints also work pretty nicely. The plastic feels good. It's not gummy like Marvel Legends, especially some of the female figures or some of the male figures. Pretty much any Marvel Legends figure is going to have gummy joints, but we're not really having that problem with the G.I. Joe figures, so that's nice. The butterfly joints actually allow you to move pretty far, but I think the reason for that is because the joint in there, this might be hard to see on camera, but the joint in there does sort of come out of place. There's a rail system that the pin moves along for the butterfly joint to work, to move forward and back, and it looks like it comes out of that rail that's in there. So that's how it's able to get like pretty far range, because it pretty much comes out of its socket. It's not totally a socket, but it does come out of place in there that allows you to get more range. So I guess it's kind of a good thing that you get more range, kind of a bad thing that they engineered it that way. Again, they could have engineered that better, but they didn't for some reason. But at the end of the day, you know, that gives us more range, so I'm pretty happy about that. The bicep swivel is good and sturdy. The double elbows work very nicely. The wrists both have a vertical hinge and a swivel, so that's very good. And they're nice and soft. They're not super soft. They're not super stiff either. I think that's the right amount. Now we get to the other disappointing part, and this is really disappointing. We get to the torso articulation. So the upper torso barely moves. It doesn't move at all. That's like no movement there. And then moving it back is the same thing. It also scratches the torso down here. Maybe, I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but it does scratch the torso, so you want to be aware of that. This figure will get scratched up in several different places. This is one of the places where it's getting scratched up here. There's another spot that I'll show you later. And then the lower doesn't move that far forward, and backward it moves a tiny bit, and both together you get that much back, that much forward, which is not a whole lot. That's really disappointing. Again, if these are new parts, they had the opportunity to engineer these better, but they didn't, and I don't know why. It's really confusing that when there's new parts, they should be better than the old parts, but these are actually worse in some ways than the older parts. So I really don't know what's going on there. It does swivel and tilt a little bit, not a whole lot, but that's enough to do some decent poses. But the legs, they go forward, and these are the drop down hips, so you can drop them lowered to get a little bit more range. Now here's kind of the other disappointing thing, is that this, you can see this part right here sort of has some damage on it, and that's from raising the leg up. So that's something else to be aware of, that it can get damaged just by moving the leg up. And of course they move out very well. Thigh swivel works pretty good. And again, these drop down hips feel a lot more sturdier than previous releases, so that's a plus. That's a good thing. Double knees don't look the best, but they function very well. Then we get to the boot swivel, which is nice, and the ankles also feel very nice, and they have a nice ankle rocker as well, which will help with posing, and it's nice and sturdy. It's not loose, so that's really going to help with posing. So both figures are exactly the same. There's no need to go over the articulation of the other figures. They're both exactly the same. But now we can take a look at the accessories. And this figure does come with a lot of accessories. I put them all here in this box that they give you. So in addition to the gear that's on the figure, you also get this rifle right here. It's sort of an AR style rifle with a grenade launcher. That's a really tiny grenade launcher, though. I don't know what kind of grenades are going to be coming out of there. But it does have a removable magazine, and this figure also comes with a khaki backpack. Now, I'm not sure what these things sticking out of here are for. I'm assuming that it's for hooking the guns onto. And here's another gun that they both come with. Of course, one's khaki, the other one is black. And they both have removable 9mm stick magazines. And this is modeled after a real gun. I don't remember the name of the gun off the top of my head. But these things, I think, are to hang the guns on. But this is kind of a stupid way to hang a gun on here. Like, that's going to be pushing the trigger right there when you put that on there. So I don't know. They couldn't design another way to hook the guns onto the backpack. Maybe that's not what goes there, but I think that's what they want you to do, which is kind of stupid. And it just looks kind of dumb when you do that too. So again, I'm not going to be doing that. And it looks kind of dumb with these things sticking out of here. So that could have been designed a little bit better. And that's what it looks like on there. So it looks all right. I just don't like, you know, those things sticking out. And I guess the weapons are meant to attach on like that. You know, I'm still not 100% sure because it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But I'm pretty sure that's what they want you to do. And the figures hold the guns very well, which is nice. You know, they have the right amount of articulation in the right places to be able to hold the weapons and get them into some cool poses. Same accessories, but in black plastic for the other figure. So it's the same thing, not really worth going over that. And then we get 2 extra helmets, or I guess 1 extra helmet. But we get 2 of these helmets, which is kind of like the standard helmet, which goes over the standard heads. So this is a white lady, and then we also have a dark-skinned lady. You know, just a different option. And the helmet also fits on there pretty nicely. It's kind of a softer plastic, so you don't have to worry about damaging the head or the helmet. And then there's the second helmet, which I'm guessing denotes like some kind of lieutenant. Might be meant for this right here. So just to denote like a higher ranking trooper, like an officer or something. Now the rest of the accessories are, of course, the pistols. Both figures have that. This one, of course, has the khaki one. And they each come with 2, which is nice. And then also a knife, which is pretty lame, I think. You know, it doesn't look very sharp. It looks like a bread knife. And you're not going to be really doing any damage with that kind of knife on the battlefield. So, but I have tons of other knives. Another problem with this knife is that it doesn't really hold it that well. It's sort of on there, like you can see it's loose. It's kind of on there just by friction, and it's not really a tight grip on there, especially this way. You can see that it kind of, yeah, you can just see that it's not a very tight fit, so that's kind of unfortunate. The remainder of the accessories are some effects for the guns. So you get a smoke effect to replicate a smoking barrel. Then here's another blast effect, and I think we've seen all of these before. Here's another one, and they all fit on the guns. At first you might have a little trouble putting them on, but after you get them on once, it's easier to get them on. I do like these, but I'm not a big fan. I think the best blast effects in the 1/12 scale are from Mezco, and these are sort of cheap imitations, and they just look kind of weird. And this reminds me of like cheese out of a can or something, so it just looks kind of weird to me. Still cool that they include them, and just to show you that they fit. So that's what that looks like. Some of them definitely look better than others. It's a little bit cartoony, but I think it still works. So now we can get into some comparisons and swaps. The first thing I want to show off is, so when pictures first came out of what these figures were going to look like, and people were seeing the khaki gear and they were kind of ragging on it, saying that it didn't really look good. The first thing that popped into my head was, how would this khaki gear look on the Lady J body? And here's what that looks like. So I think that looks really cool. You know, and comparing these two figures, you know, this one is definitely superior. I would like to see them redo a, you know, G.I. Joe female with this sort of body. Obviously, I'm gonna have to do some modification on this to make the articulation better. But this looks really cool, and this is what I thought. You know, when I first saw that the beige gear, the khaki gear, whatever you want to call it, this is like what I had in mind, and I think this looks really cool. The backpack also fits, which is really cool. And then again, the tan guns or the khaki guns also look really cool on the green figure. So I really like how that turned out. So putting it next to Baroness, she's actually taller than these two troopers. And then of course we can do a head swap. The head doesn't totally fit on there and it does look a little big, so in my opinion that doesn't really work. And then of course you can put a ton of different heads on it. I'm just going to do a couple really quick. So there's that one. That looks pretty cool. You can have an eye patch. This eye patch lady. That also looks kind of interesting. The old Psylocke head. That looks pretty cool. The old Elektra head. That also works. The new Elektra head. That also looks kind of interesting. This one, I forgot her name, but it's Marvel Legends. You can have an Asian Cobra Trooper. That's pretty cool. Here's another Silk head. That's also pretty cool. This is a McFarlane head, a little bit too big. And here's the short-haired Black Widow head. So that also looks pretty cool. Here's the new Psylocke head. That looks pretty cool. Then last one, here's the Marvel Legends Monet. So that also looks pretty cool. Then here they are next to Destro and my custom Commander Cobra. Then I'll bring the Baroness back in here. So they look pretty cool together and they'll make any Cobra display look cool in my opinion, I think. So I like how these figures turned out. Definitely some modifications need to be made to make the articulation better, but for the most part I'm really happy with how these turned out, especially that you can do, you know, more stuff like this. Anyways guys, so that's all I gotta say about these figures. Let me know what you think about these figures. Let me know what you think about this review. And like I said, these figures are pretty good. Few things that I have problems with, but for the most part I think these are really good releases. I'm gonna definitely be doing some modifying to make these figures even better, but as they are, pretty good pack to build up your Cobra ranks. And yeah, that's all I gotta say. I'll see you guys in the next one.